This episode of Joan Deserves a Musical is all about prologues. Now, I've probably mentioned before I got swept away in the story of Joan of Arc and the idea of making an animated musical, I was trying to write novels. I've been trying to write novels for years and not having any luck. But in the world of novels, I feel at least the idea of a prologue is sort of, you don't do that. You don't just drop a bunch of exposition on top of people right at the start. That's death. You want the first page to sweep them away. But when I look at the Disney Renaissance, which is really my model for this movie, kind of the late 80s, early 90s films that did so well and really defined the musical form in its modern iteration, a lot of them have prologues. Not all of them, but a lot of them do. And it really seems to help set the tone of the movie in a lot of ways. I think it's actually a really powerful tool. And that's good news for the story of Joan of Arc, because she shows up on the scene 90 years into a 100-year war, right? You've got to set some sort of backstory or else people will have no idea what's going on. And so I just want to talk through some of the prologues in the Disney Renaissance and how I'm thinking about approaching this in the musical of Joan of Arc. So first movie of the Disney Renaissance is The Little Mermaid. No prologue there, just jumps right into the story. The first real prologue movie of the Disney Renaissance. Previous to the Renaissance, there lots of Disney movies start with like an actual physical book opening up with like, once upon a time there was a princess who whatever, right? In the Renaissance, though, in Beauty and the Beast, we get a very cool kind of prologue. We get shots that's not even really animated. There is beautiful animation, but then you come to stained glass and you see just kind of still images of how the prince came to be cursed, with some incredible music in the background. It's not sung, but man, if that prologue music isn't one of my favorite things Disney has ever made. It's so pretty. And it just sets the story and the theme, right? And sets the timetable, right? He has to break this curse before that last rose petal falls. Now we feel that time pressure, and we understand that's important as we get toward the end of the movie. The prologue does a lot there. But it's spoken. It is it not fully animated. And it is not, it just gives some backstory. Next is Aladdin, and there are lots of people who are saying lots of things about all the problematic things about the prologue of Aladdin, the guy singing about Arabian Nights and things. Let's set all that aside for a minute and just look structurally, how is it working in the musical? And in conversations with my songwriter, Amanda, she pointed out that structurally, it's really problematic too. If you think about it, you have this guy, he sings this song, he shows up, he's selling you a lamp, and then he hops into the story. And then, Amanda very wisely points out, we never see him again. We have no idea at the end of the movie how that guy got the lamp. And in fact, the thing that Amanda pointed out to me that really got me scratching my head was at the end, it's the genie, right? Like when we have a dramatic pull away, the genie like shows up in the moon or something and then does Made You Look, right? And like, what? Where did our narrator go? Like, what is the genie telling the story? It's a mess. It's a mess. So let's avoid that, right? Having a character we never see again who sings a song that in 10 years everybody is going to be really offended by, selling a lamp that we have no idea how he got. Like, whoa, all kinds of problems there. That feels like a prologue for the sake of a prologue. Then in The Lion King, we get a third entirely different kind of prologue. There's no speaking at all. In fact, the prologue of The Lion King kind of makes you feel like, is there going to be any talking in this movie at all? Maybe these animals don't talk, right? But you get the Circle of Life song, and you get like just kind of a sense of the world. Then there's Pocahontas, no prologue there, although it starts with like a shot of a painting of London that then becomes animated and people are singing a song about going sailing. It feels kind of prologue-ish, but it's not a prologue. Hunchback of Notre Dame, I have really undervalued in terms of storytelling. Amanda was going on and on to me in a creative meeting we had about how powerful the prologue of Hunchback of Notre Dame is, and I could only vaguely remember what the movie was even about. So I watched it, and holy cow, it works so well. So what happens in this prologue is you start with it's all sung with some speaking in it, but it's a song by the jester guy. I forget his name. And he not only tells the backstory of how Quasimodo came to be in the care of Frollo, but he also asks a question, which is the theme. He says, who is the monster and who is the man, right? And then the movie goes along, and something Amanda really likes is he is a character. This person, and I think this is unique among all these movies. The storyteller is a character in the movie. He shows up, and Amanda points out that gives him credibility. He can tell this story because he was there. He saw it happen, which is pretty cool. But then you get to the end, and he sings a very, very short, just like a 1 or 2 sentence reprise of that opening song, which makes a beautiful musical bookend, right? This sort of symmetry. But he just repeats the question, who is the monster and who is the man? He doesn't answer the question because the movie has answered the question. And at the beginning, you're like, well, clearly, we know the bad guy is going to be the monster, and the hunchback is going to not be the monster. He's going to be the man. But when we get to the end, having been through this journey, that question somehow feels different because we are different. And that bookend structure and starting and ending with a question for the audience to ponder that the story has answered, that is Amanda's vision for our prologue and ending. And I am really excited to see if we can pull that off, because it's so much better than what I was imagining initially. In the draft I had sent her, I started with a map of France. This is sort of, there are plenty of movies that start with maps. The Messenger, which I reviewed in my episode called You're Doing It Wrong, is a 1999 movie about Joan of Arc that is awful in a lot of ways, but also really good in a lot of ways. And its intro just showed a map of France and where the major points were. And for me, as a person who was deep in researching Joan, that was the first time I had seen it laid out so clearly. And so many things fell into place, and I was like, now I get it. And I wanted to give my audience that experience. So I was like, I'll start with a map, and I'll show them the different points, and it'll be good. And it's just boring. And especially for a kids movie and a musical, it's just wrong. But I couldn't think of a better thing to do. Then I talked to Amanda, and she's like, what if we start with a thematic question? And what if it's the muses singing, and then we end with them singing, and we have some question that brings it all together? And that's when things really started falling into place with the musical structure of this thing. So I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to do. But there's more to talk about, because the next movie in the Disney Renaissance is Hercules. And very often when I talk about the story of Joan of Arc as an animated musical, and there are these saints. Did I say muses? Well, I just spoiled the surprise. Anyway, there are these saints who were guiding her, right? We have the saints singing. It's very easy to think of the muses, but the muses are different in a very important way. First of all, the muses are great. In Hercules, let's just all agree, the muses are fantastic, and their music is really good. And even people who don't like Hercules are often like, the muses were the only part that was any good, right? And so like they work really well, and story-wise, they can just be dropped in. Oh, we need a montage to pass some time. Oh, we need to teach this life lesson. And they can just come in with that gospel-flavored music, and it just works. It is great. But importantly, different from what we just said about the narrator and Hunchback of Notre Dame, they are not in any way involved in this story. The muses are telling the story, I guess because they're muses, but they never once whisper anything or give a creative idea to any of the characters, which kind of feels like a missed opportunity. I hadn't thought about it before I had this conversation with Amanda, but like, I don't know how the music, like, what are the muses even doing in this story besides telling it? So the saints are going to be, involved, giving Joan direction and stuff, but also narrating and singing. And there's some interesting visual things I want to do to give us cues as to when they are narrating retrospectively and when they are characters in the movie. And I think that's going to be a delicate dance, but I think it could work really well. Next comes Mulan, which does not have a prologue, really. It's the closest thing to my map thing I was doing. It starts with like calligraphic drawings of like the wall, and then it becomes animated, and the bad guy shows up, and but there's no prologue. There's no backstory. It's just kind of an inciting incident in some ways. But the thing I really like about Mulan is the ancestors. The ancestors are, if I have to point to a place that inspires the way I'm approaching the saints, it's not the muses in Hercules, it's the ancestors in Mulan, because they are so funny, and they each have their own personality, and they kind of bicker with each other, and they kind of joke around, and they make decisions that really impact the characters, but mostly they're just kind of the peanut gallery there, having a conversation, being entertainment value. And I want I keep almost saying muses, the saints, to strike that same balance. They're going to be entertaining. They're going to be, kind of an eclectic bunch who bounce off of each other in humorous, interesting ways. But they also compel the characters to do important things. Then on top of that, so if you can imagine the ancestors in Mulan singing the story the way the muses do, and the same structure as the narrator in Hunchback of Notre Dame. That is the grand vision of what we're going for here, which I think is doable, and I'm really excited to see how it comes together. The last movie often it's sort of contested whether Tarzan is part of the Disney Renaissance or not. I am not including it here because it's not a musical in the same sense as the others, right? This is when Disney pivots to this, we'll just have Phil Collins sing off screen instead of having the characters themselves sing, and that's a totally different thing. So that is my thoughts on Prologues and how we're going to approach this. I have high hopes it's going to be really good, and I hope that someday we all get to watch it in the movie theater together.